Committee on Crime and Federal Government Surveillance, Mr. Biggs, for the purpose of making his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is really an honor to be here. And I want to start by saying that this is an official congressional committee hearing. This is not some forum or something like this. This is an official congressional hearing. And that makes it more curious that no one from the other side of the aisle chose to come to an official congressional hearing. It's very, very sad to me because this issue should not be a partisan issue. I also take this opportunity to thank Mayor Cleo Maca, and thank you for hosting us, Sierra Vista's mayor. Thank you for the president of Cochise College, J.D. Rottweiler. Thank you for hosting it. Your staff has been excellent in putting this together because it is an official hearing. This is on C-SPAN. That's how you know it's official. If C-SPAN's not here, we're not here. So we appreciate the college's staff and their great work. We appreciate Sheriff Daniels and his deputies who've been providing us with some good security, but also good information and taking us to multiple places. And I thank both of our other witnesses, Mr. Ladd, who we've known for quite some time, and he's a rancher here, and Art Arthur, and his incredible knowledge that you're going to hear from. So there's a lot of people to thank. I thank our U.S. Capitol Police escort who's here with us as well. And of course, we thank each and every one of you for your interest in coming here today. I'm pleased to be here in this beautiful part of the world. And I crossed out so many things and added so many things. I'm trying to find where I'm supposed to be. Anyway, I'll just thank also my co-chairman for this event, or this hearing, Mr. Grothman from Wisconsin. Mr. Grothman has been, I lead regular congressional delegations to the border, all over the border, from RGV to Rio Grande Valley to San Isidro, which is San Diego. And he has been with me on at least, I think, half a dozen of those. So he's a guy who knows and cares about this intensely. And my colleagues who are up here as well, I appreciate them being here. See, I think it's really important to see what's really going on at the border. We can read about it, but the reality is, until you see it, it doesn't strike home. You can watch videos on TV, but you just don't believe it. In fact, almost every time we post a video, there's always some yo-yo who says, "That's a fake video. It's all staged." You know, it's remarkable to see. So when I visit the border, and when I'm in my district in Arizona, I speak with Border Patrol agents, local law enforcement officials, concerned citizens, ranchers, businessmen and women. I want to know what's going on with them and what the impact is. Talk to sometimes education officials, because you have recruitment going on by cartels of youth at schools through social media apps to come down and pick up people in Cochise County or on I-8 in Pinal County or down in Yuma, to transport bodies for $1,000 or $2,000 and take them on up to Phoenix or Tucson. So here's my report that I want to give to you. I can say with certainty that the Biden border crisis and its effect on American communities is dangerous, is devastating. It demands national attention. It needs it immediately. And I call upon our colleagues to help us get whatever legislation needs to be passed. We've already passed H.R. 2. It's languishing in the Senate. It needs to be passed out of the Senate and signed by the president. It probably won't be. What needs to happen is enforcement, though. We need the executive branch to enforce the laws that are already on the books. If they begin doing that, we'll see a change very quickly. DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas testified in front of the House Judiciary Committee just a couple of weeks ago. He doesn't believe there's a crisis. When we reminded him of what the Secure Fence Act of 2006 and how it defines operational control of the border, which basically says no person and no contraband can illegally cross into the United States of America, he said no one could do that. And thus, They had created their own definition. And according to his own definition, he's doing all right. I think that's impeachable. It is his reckless disregard for law and order and his implementation of open border policies that have caused the crisis that we see along the border and in the country. When we have open borders, we are not a secure nation. Here's one concerning recent example that we have received. We have received reports that criminal cartels are taking advantage of Secretary Mayorkas' open border policies. Secretary Mayorkas implemented the CBP-1 app to ostensibly to streamline asylum appointments for migrants, allowing them to pre-register when they are near the U.S. border. Ostensibly, supposedly, there was geofencing that was going to be there, so that only when you got close to the border, which actually provides an incentive to come close to the border, but only when you got close to the border, then you could apply to CBP-1 to get that expedited appointment. Well, that way he describes as being a lawful entryway. It's not lawful. It is not legal. There's no authority for that. But the even worse news is that cartels now are reportedly selling VPN services to migrants which allow them to pre-register for a U.S. asylum appointment and to ignore the geofencing system before they have even reached northern Mexico. These continue to be pull factors or incentives to come into this country illegally. The CBP-1 app hurts Americans by welcoming any migrant with a smartphone into the U.S. and assists the cartels in soliciting more customers to make the dangerous trip to our border. It is no wonder immigration numbers are again on the rise. Illegal. Don't conflate illegal immigration with legal immigration. The illegal border crossings continue to rise even though we've had a very hot summer. No one enters the border or crosses the border without the cartel's assistance and approval. Drugs are coming across and are literally poisoning our communities. It's time for this administration to stop enabling them and to enforce the law. The lives of victims of increased crime are at stake. You, in your community of Sierra Vista, there will be increased crime because there's increased drug use. In my community, in Gilbert, yes, same thing. The lives of state and local law enforcement dealing with a continual rise in crime, their lives are at risk. At risk also are the lives of those in communities who live in fear of the violent crime and fentanyl pouring across our border and into their neighborhoods. The lives of the victims of known terrorists who have entered our open border due to lax screening, which, by the way, the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, is now changing the categorization nomenclature. It's no longer going to be on this terror watch list. It will be national security risk or something like that. Why? Why are you changing the language? Because it's easier to hide the reality of the gravity of the situation. Also, even the lives of those who are trying to get up here and cross illegally into the country. Many are dying en route. Many become, as Chairman Grothman pointed out, effectively indentured servants to the cartels. But this administration is doing everything it can to encourage these people to make the journey by offering NGO assistance and simplifying and expanding so-called lawful pathways. Secretary Mayorkas told Congress that DHS is, quote, taking it to the cartels, close quote. I wonder if he meant the profits for illegal drug and migrant activity. The only winners here are the cartels. We know these vast criminal networks are also facilitating human smuggling at the border and are intentionally targeting the areas between the ports of entry. As Deputy Chief Justin De La Torre stated, quote, those organizations are deliberately placing them, the migrants, in the most remote regions of our area in order to pull our resources off of our patrol functions, close quote. The cartels have cashed in on these Biden policies like the mass parole and asylum applications that will take years to process, years where aliens remain in the United States awaiting a court appointment that they will not even ever attend. The last time frame, and I think Mr. Arthur's going to clarify this probably for me. If I remember right, it's 84 months before people who are getting in today are getting court dates. 84 months out. The Biden administration is also falsely claiming border crossings are decreasing, but that's not really the truth. In 2023, encounters remain historically high. CBP personnel have already encountered 2.3 million inadmissible aliens at and in between the ports of entry. The figure doesn't even include the hundreds of thousands of gotaways who disappear completely into American communities and who are trying desperately to hide from the agents who would otherwise enforce the law. In 2022, 98 suspected terrorists were apprehended in between ports of entry. This year, it's over 140. The Tucson sector is no exception to the number of criminal migrants flowing across the border, as well as other criminal activity intercepted by the brave men and women under the leadership of Chief John Maudlin. Let me just give you some recent numbers for the Tucson sector, of which that's where we're sitting in, the Tucson sector. Yesterday in the port of Nogales, this is at the port of entry, 870,000 fentanyl pills. One day, port of entry, 870,000 pills. Not last week, week before last, more than 9,000 encounters in the Tucson sector. At Lukeville, just west of Lukeville, 2 nights ago, 535 men in a single group apprehended. Weekend before last, just in 3 days, over 3,500 apprehensions. That is what's happening in our sector. And Sheriff Daniels and Mr. Ladd are going to give us more information about what they see on the ground here. The Tucson sector is leading in apprehensions. It has seen a 28% increase in apprehensions compared to last year. In the last week of July, as I said, more than 10,000 migrants during that week. In that same week, agents also carried out, and you'll never hear this from the other side, 430 migrant rescues, 21 human smuggling attempts. They conducted 13 narcotic seizures, recovered 1 stolen vehicle and 1 firearm. And that's from the front lines. We invited our friends from the other side of the aisle to be here today. This is an official congressional hearing. We miss them. We wish they were here. We wish that they would say things like this is a serious nonpartisan or bipartisan issue, instead of saying that this is all fantasy and this is hyperbole. It is not. The country's future is at stake. Thank you for being here. I yield back.